What if I told you that the greatest obstacle in your life isn't the world, isn't society, isn't even your past? It's you. More precisely, it's the part of you that you mistake for yourself, the ego. For most of us, the ego is invisible, like a puppet master pulling strings from the shadows. It shapes our thoughts, dictates our emotions, and filters how we perceive the world. But what if you could step beyond it? What if you could let it die so you could truly live? The ego is not your enemy, it's a tool, one that helps you navigate the world, define your identity, and survive. But like any tool, if it's misused, it controls you instead of serving you. Think about it. The ego is nothing more than a collection of past experiences, beliefs, and mental constructs that tell you who you are. It whispers, "You are this, not that." It reinforces, "You must act this way, not that way." But by defining you, it also limits you. It creates shadows, the things you refuse to acknowledge. If you believe you are intelligent, the ego will not allow you to admit ignorance. If you believe you are weak, it won't let you see your strength. In both cases, it traps you in a loop of identity, making it impossible for you to evolve beyond it. The true danger isn't having an ego. The true danger is not knowing that you are being controlled by it. And that is why you must kill it. Not your body, not your mind, but the false self that holds you captive. This is just the beginning. Are you ready to go further? As we delve deeper, the truth becomes more unsettling. The ego is a shadow self that does not know it exists. It doesn't understand that it is a creation of past experiences, beliefs, and mental patterns that you never consciously chose. It simply acts as if it is you, and the way things are must be the way things are. This blind certainty is the core of its power. It tells you that the limits it imposes are real, that your perceived weaknesses are true, and that your struggles are part of who you are. But all of this is a lie. The unconscious ego lives in complete ignorance. It doesn't know that it is malleable, that it can change, and that you have the ability to transcend it. This ignorance is dangerous because it locks you in place. It defines your reality based on the beliefs you've adopted, without ever questioning their origin or truth. It makes you think that your suffering is just a part of you, something you have no control over. It makes you think that the choices you make are simply the result of your personality, not something you've been conditioned into. But none of this is true. You may not even realize the depths of this unconscious ego until you begin the work of self-awareness. It's like a veil that clouds your vision, preventing you from seeing your true self. And when you begin to see beyond that veil, when the ego starts to crack, that's when things get real. That's when the weight of the ignorance lifts, but not always gently. For some, the collapse of this unconsciousness is a painful process, one that brings up feelings of self-doubt, shame, and despair. But this pain, this destruction of the old self, is necessary for growth. The ego must be shattered before you can experience true freedom. Here's the paradox. The more unconscious you are, the less likely you are to see it. The more entrenched the ego becomes, the more it convinces you that it's the truth. It blinds you from the fact that it is, in essence, a false identity, a collection of external influences, not your true essence. But this is where the work begins. By becoming conscious of the ego, by seeing it for what it truly is, you begin the process of dismantling it. This is why spiritual awakening is so much more than just a pleasant experience or a moment of peace. It is a deep, transformative process that shakes you to your core. It asks you to confront everything you've been avoiding about yourself. It pushes you to release the beliefs that have kept you trapped in the loop of the unconscious ego. But once you do, once you truly begin to awaken, you will experience a freedom unlike anything you've ever known before. Are you ready to break free from the chains of your own mind? Are you prepared to see beyond the ego's illusions and step into your true self? Because the moment you realize the truth, that the ego is not you, it begins to lose its power. And that's when you begin to live. Truly live. This journey won't be easy, but it's the only path to true transformation. Let go of the false self. Kill the ego, not to destroy yourself, but to uncover the life you were always meant to live. Letting go of the unconscious ego isn't just about dismantling false beliefs and identities. It requires a deep desire to know yourself. But here's the paradox. In the midst of unconsciousness, how can you even want to know yourself? Isn't it the ego that blinds you from this awareness? And yet within the very darkness of the ego there lies a spark, a desire to awaken, to see beyond the illusion. This desire is a choice, one of the first conscious decisions you make on the path of self-discovery. It may seem ironic, even impossible, that someone so entangled in their unconscious mind can choose awareness. But it happens. It's part of the divine grace that guides you back to the truth of who you really are. That very spark of awareness is what propels you forward. As you make this choice, something begins to shift. You start building a conscious ego. Unlike the unconscious ego, this conscious version knows that it is a creation, a temporary structure that can be unmade once it has served its purpose. It's like scaffolding on a building, a necessary tool for construction, but something you remove once the work is complete. This conscious ego is a necessary part of the process, helping you navigate the early stages of spiritual growth. It provides you with a sense of direction, a framework to begin deconstructing the old self. However, here's where the danger lies. If you become too attached to this conscious ego, you risk replacing one false identity with another. It's easy to get caught up in the journey of self-improvement, thinking that the work you've done on yourself has truly set you free. But this new identity, this spiritual ego, can become just as limiting as the old one. People often fall into this trap. They improve themselves, they have spiritual experiences, but they've merely wallpapered the prison cell rather than torn it down. They've built a new set of walls, masking the core issues, self-hatred, fear, depression, that still lie beneath. In this stage, it's easy to mistake the temporary sense of progress for true transformation. It feels good, you feel better, but it's not enough. You can't fully know yourself if you're still attached to any ego, whether unconscious or conscious. True freedom comes from the realization that the ego, no matter how conscious it seems, is not who you really are, and so you continue the work. You dismantle the scaffolding. You go beyond the surface, digging deeper into the layers of the false self until there is nothing left. The conscious ego, like the unconscious one before it, must be unmade when it is no longer useful. Only then will you begin to touch the core of your true self, the one that exists beyond identity, beyond labels, beyond all the mental constructs that have defined you for so long. This process can feel unsettling. It's uncomfortable to let go of everything you thought you knew about yourself. But this discomfort is part of the journey. It's through this discomfort that you shed the final layers of the ego and awaken to the life you were always meant to live. Are you willing to step beyond even the conscious ego? Are you ready to dismantle every last belief, every last thought that stands in the way of you knowing your true self? The journey won't be easy, but the reward is worth it. True freedom, true awakening, and the life you've always been destined to live. This is your path. This is your awakening. Let go. Keep going. Because the moment you do, you will know yourself, not through the lens of ego, but through the pure, unfiltered experience of being. The next step on this journey is confronting your inner darkness. Letting go of the ego means being willing to see all of yourself. The light, yes, but also the pain, the fears, the unresolved experiences that have been hidden away. These are the parts of you that shape much of the ego's structure, and they tend to remain buried out of sight in the darkest corners of your mind. As you delve into this, you may begin to realize that much of who you think you are is built on these forgotten beliefs and experiences. But facing this truth isn't easy. In fact, it's where things get uncomfortable. This is where the real work begins. The ego thrives on comfort, on what feels familiar. When you start unraveling these deep-seated beliefs, it's not just a shift, it's a collapse. You'll begin to lose touch with who you thought you were. You may not know who you are or what you want anymore, and that uncertainty can be overwhelming. Many people quit here. They want to eliminate the pain but keep the pleasure. But the reality is, the ego's dissolution involves both pain and pleasure, two sides of the same coin. And this is where most spiritual paths mislead us. They promise freedom from suffering, but that isn't the same as freedom from pain. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is the mind's attachment to that pain, the story it tells itself about what the pain means. Letting go of the ego is about letting go of that story. It's not about avoiding pain, but about releasing the grip the mind has on it. As you move forward, remember, the darkness you face is not the enemy. It's the very soil from which growth can emerge, but only if you're willing to face it head on. There is a deep well of beauty within each of us, often hidden away by the barriers our egos create. So many of us are cut off from our own potential by self-hatred, fear, and despair. The very things that could bring us immense joy and love are often denied to us by the unconscious, defensive layers of our ego. But beneath all that, within the very core of our being, there is a beauty that cannot be erased. It's the part of us that is pure, untouched by the fears and judgments we carry. However, to truly reconnect with this beauty, we must face something essential: the ability to surrender to discomfort. This surrender is a key part of letting go of the ego. It's not enough to simply want to change or be free from the ego. We must have the resilience to endure discomfort and to allow ourselves to sit with the pain and unease that arise as we shed old patterns. As we reach the culmination of this journey, we face the most profound step of all, the willingness to embrace all of life. And it's here that we find the ultimate test. The ego thrives on control, on picking and choosing what it accepts and rejects. It wants only the good, the pleasurable, the safe. But true freedom, true spiritual awakening, comes from the profound act of embracing everything. Can you embrace the unexpected challenges that come your way? Can you accept the pain, the hardship, and the suffering without resistance? Can you hold the deepest sorrows in your heart while still moving forward with love and peace? The ego would have us avoid these situations at all costs, but the divine self, the true, unshakable self, embraces all of life. In truth, the less ego we have, the less we resist life's unfolding. We stop clinging to what we wish a life would be, and instead, we begin to engage with what is. The truth is that when we begin to embrace all of life, even the pain, we discover a deeper experience, a connection to the world beyond our unconscious ego. The ego wants to avoid, to select only what's easy and comfortable. But the divine self knows that growth comes from embracing it all. And when you finally embrace all of life, the joys, the sorrows, the triumphs, and the struggles, the ego will have no place left to hide. It will dissolve, and you will stand in the fullness of your true self, unshaken, open, and free. Embrace it all, and the journey will bring you closer to the highest truth, that everything, all of it, is part of your path to awakening.